welcome to Egg and Weed Production again. Today we're going to talk about more or less the Civil War Part 2. Since everything's going to hell in a handbasket. Hand in a handbasket.
Yeah, I really don't know what to say as far as all that's concerned. I mean, I've had to deal with differing political views on all of this garbage. You know.
Well, I even looked at a survey type deal, and they're saying that I was like, if you have 12 bad cops, but like 300 good cops, and if those 300 good cops don't report the 16 bad cops, the all cops are bad. And I was actually thinking to myself, I was like, no. The people that actually get the most reports in internal affairs are cops ratting out other cops. They do actually do that. It's just because of all the red tape and everything, they have a lot of problems getting rid of those bad cops. That's one of the main reasons why a lot of people are getting upset now, is just the bad cops.
And
plus
you have to think about, okay, say if we make it a smaller number, say you've got five cops. One of them is a bad cop. And out of the 4 remaining cops, only one of them gets the idea that 5th cop is a bad cop. And he's making reports, but since there's no corroborating evidence on his reports, or since, say, your city officials are trying not to get rid of a police officer because it's expensive to train one, they're overlooking the reports that are being filed. Does that make those 4 officers, the 3 that don't know what's going on, and the 1 that is filing the reports but not getting anywhere, does that make them bad cops?
No, that doesn't make them bad cops. It just makes the political standing of all. I mean, their biggest thing they want to do is defund the police department because, we really don't want to have
excuse me.
We don't they don't want to have to worry about cops or anything anymore. They're saying it's just being basically a military because they have guns. And it's not even. I've gotten pulled over by cops. I wouldn't even call it harassing. They were driving by. I was just walking around in the neighborhood, and they stopped me, asked me what I was doing. And I told them the truth, and they drove off, and they're merry business. After about 30 minutes, because we had a whole conversation, because it was at night, and the cops didn't really have anything else better to do, but they were just making sure everything was all good, which they were investigating and making sure that I wasn't causing any trouble.
No. I'm sure that as you say that, there's going to be a lot of people out there that say, yes, but you don't fit the criteria that these cops are discriminating against.
No, it's...
And that if you were, say, of a different skin color, or maybe the shape of your nose was a little different, or you had pointy ears, they would have, treated you differently.
Yeah. But you also have, what's happening right now is like the most recent one was in Georgia and Atlanta, where a guy was liberated. He was falling asleep in his vehicle at a Wendy's drive-thru, and the cops ended up killing him, not because he was black. It was because he was drunk. He grabbed a taser. He shot the taser, but in all reality, if you're in a situation where you have lots of adrenaline and everything, you do not know what is going to happen because you are in a heightened state right then and there.
Yeah, and one of the people I actually talked with was telling me about all of that mess. Apparently, he lives just a few miles from where it happened. After that happened, rather than finding out what happened and why the guy was shot, you literally had people from the BLM community burn down the Wendy's that called the guy in.
Oh yeah. and a lot of people are going off the fact. It's like, well, they're just unrest because 200 years ago they had slavery, which I hate to tell you this right now, but Irishmen were technically the first slaves in the United States.
Chinese were next.
No, it wasn't Chinese. Chinese came more or less. They came more or less afterwards when we started building the railroads. They were right after the black community.
Well, that's what I'm saying though. Is we've had across the world we've had Chinese.
No. It's not even that. We still have a slave problem, and we have in this world. Hands down, we do have a slave problem, but it's not in the United States anymore. It's a small amount in the United States. Yes, is there slavery in the United States still? Most definitely. But it's not through the actual states or people doing it. They're actually more or less getting theft of people, and they're being shipped to other countries, like some Middle Eastern countries, some other countries down in Mexico.
Well, when I was on the road as a truck driver, I would occasionally run into signs postings indicating that the sex slave trade was still active here in the United States.
Oh yeah.
Apparently,
that actually is still active, and this is going off of a report about 5-6 years ago of and this is what they would do is they would offer a living condition and everything like that. How they get these slaves is they get living condition. They say, oh, you're gonna get a job and everything. We already got it all set up, and you're going after. They get here. Basically, how they make it to where it doesn't seem like slavery is they overcharge on their rent, their food, getting them over here. They have to pay all this stuff back, and once they pay all this stuff back, then they can go out and live their life and everything. Until that actually happens, they're living on conditions that are so poor it's ridiculous. And we're not even talking, and that's just for the adults. The children, on the other hand, it's just horrible what they're doing with the children, because they're basically making them like 12-year-old sex slave. And this is happening over in Thailand. Oh man, my allergies hitting bad because we just had a big thunderstorm. But anyways, a lot of this stuff is happening right under a lot of people's noses. There's a lot of people that just don't care because they just want to live their own lives. I'm not discriminating on that, but there are people that are out there that actually are trying to stop that type of slave, or any kind of slave trade. And there is a lot of charity groups that do that on their own time. But a lot of people were like, oh, there's some people that are saying that slavery is in existence in this time, and it's just hasn't. I was like, and being truthful about the whole situation, we still have slaves here in the United States. You might not believe that it actually does happen in the United States, but it does happen in the United States. Now, on the racial bigotry that's happening right now, or the racism, we'll just call it racism. In all reality, with the George Floyd, there's two sides on this. A lot of people's like, no, it's one side. It was a white cop against a black cop. I hate to tell you this right now. There was 4 cops there. One was Asian, one was black, one was white, and another one was white. That's different races doing what happened. It was one bad cop and 3 other cops that didn't know what to do about the situation, because I honestly believe that those other cops were rookies. But I still had to read in a little bit more into it, and I really haven't, because I've just gotten so pissed off with the whole situation, because they wanted to honor the victim. Both, in my opinion, both the people that were in that situation, George Floyd and the cop, were douchebags. One was a douchebag because he did a lot of drugs, which are illegal. The drugs that he was doing was meth and a bunch of other stuff. That was illegal. He was liberated. He wasn't being, what do you call it? I guess it would be submissive. He wasn't being submissive. He was being more aggressive. Now the other cop that actually pinned him down on the ground and put his knee on the man's throat, in all reality, that should never happen. They tell you in any kind of schools that you end up going to that have where you have to wrestle a person down to the ground. They literally tell you, do not use this thing. Use it very, very sparingly, because you're pretty much probably going to end up killing the person if you use it too long. You're not supposed to put your knee on a person's neck. Is it very helpful? Yes. The problem with that is you'll end up killing the person. Now, from the angles I was seeing, they already had them handcuffed. A lot of cops, when they have them already handcuffed and everything, they put them up on the curb. They hold them there. They have one person hold the guy's shoulder and make sure he always sits down until they can get a cop car to put him into it a little bit closer. That's how it's supposed to happen. Not all the times it does happen like that.
And like I said, I can't say much as far as all of that's concerned, because I haven't watched the videos. I've only gone by what, I've been hearing other people say. And from what I've been hearing other people say, I can 100% say that the officer that put his knee on the guy's neck was in the wrong. They trained us not to do that. They trained us specifically in other methods to restrain an offender so that they would not be injured after we had them captured.
Yeah.
So I can clearly say that officer was wrong. Now, is it right for large groups of people to go rioting in the name of, that man was of color?
They're not even, that's they've gone far weird on this stuff. Is they actually stole a town. I'm not saying it's a political protest. No, they are a terrorist organization that had captured a 7-block area of a city. And I don't know why they are even... I understand they're trying to negotiate because, hey, this is a special situation. No, these people took control by force over this town.
And but
it's literally terrorism.
Back to what I was trying to say is, the minute they made it about the color of that man's skin is the minute they lost all the ground they had to stand on.
Yeah.
Because this should have been about human rights and the police brutality. This should never have been about, because there are quite a number of cases of other...
There was one 11 months back. Well, okay, it would probably be about 12 months back. It was about a year ago. Same thing, same situation. It was in Dallas, Texas. It's literally almost book by word by word, same situation. It was 4 cops with a white guy who had his neck being pinned on the ground because he had a lot of drugs on him, and the cops were literally making fun of him. They have video of this, that the cops were making fun of him. And then until they even have a video of the actual person being escorted inside the EMT van, the medical van, and the guy was like, "There's nothing I can do here. He's dead." They're always like, "What? He's not dead. He's sleeping." They didn't know. And all there was another situation where a kid had a BB gun, and I thought they fixed this issue a long time ago to where all toy weapons, no matter what it is, has to have like a little yellow cap or orange cap on top of it.
It's supposed to have an orange cap if it doesn't fire a projectile of any kind.
So technically,
if it's a BB gun,
it doesn't have to have one.
It counts as a gun.
Okay, that explains that. But this kid he was on a park and he was messing with his BB gun, which in most cities, especially at our city, they have a law to where if anything's projectile, you can't shoot it in city limits, no matter what. But the cop shot this kid, and all the kid had was a BB gun. Is there justice for this guy? Yes, he's going through a process, and the cop was reprimanded and fired. A lot of situations that people don't hear about, the cops actually get arrested, they're tried, they're found out if if the courts view the situation was good or bad. The cop is either arrested and put into jail, or he is just fired. He can't be a cop anymore. Or they find that all the situation and everything was good. The cop was doing his job up the utmost, and he's back paid and put back into the system. And he's a cop again. And in all reality, the same thing happens to us when we were actually correctional officers, to where if anything goes down in a harmful way, because there was one instance, a guy in the cell had fire in it, they didn't know, and the guy wasn't being compliant, and they sprayed CS gas inside the cell, caught the cell on fire, caught the guy on fire, and he died. And those officers were tried. But nobody hears about it because it didn't make the mainstream news. A lot of this stuff doesn't make mainstream news. And the stuff that does make mainstream news, they narrate it to where the victim is the person that's getting arrested, which, depending on the situations, and a lot of people don't want to do any kind of research or anything. They don't want to go out and go, hey, why did this happen? Okay, let the judges and the court system actually do their job. Instead of just, that's a lot of stuff that's happening right now, is they are literally lynching and trying to kill people and destroying things because they don't want the court system to do anything. They just want to get rid of those people.
Well, and here's the thing. I can understand a lot of the prejudice toward the court system, because the court system has failed enough times that there are a lot of people who don't feel that the court system is going to do them justice.
I mean, there's still a killer out right now that he's in Florida on Twitter. A guy named of O.J. Simpson. I don't know if anybody's heard of him, but I mean, everybody and their mother and father and everybody believes he killed his wife and that person, the boyfriend.
But what I'm getting at is there's a lot of people who don't believe that the court system is going to do them justice. But I think that they're taking their anger out on the wrong people. We should be making reforms to the government, like strict term limits, like mandatory one-term strict term limits for our state and for our state government and our Senate and our Congress. our Supreme Court justices, they should have a term limit. There should be no, oh, you get to sit there for life?
Well, any federal judge that's in any kind of court, they're not voted in. Only like district courts are actually voted in. But if you're in a federal court, once you're into a federal court, you're there for life. I know stories. There was one federal judge that would run naked on the highway at 5 o'clock in the morning every other week, and they would have to go in and
I don't know if
arrest
it's
him.
I don't know if it's true, but there was supposedly one of them that was constantly naked under his robe and kept a prostitute in the back room.
That doesn't surprise me. Not at one.
I don't know if it's true or not. That was a rumor that I heard.
There's a highly likely that it actually was. They did a thing on Justified. They had a judge do that, so I'm pretty sure it was real. That wasn't fake. But
we should be attempting to reform the system that everybody is malcontent with, rather than rioting and burning down. And
well, they're trying to take. Okay, so far they've took out Aunt Jemima.
Aunt Jemima?
Oh yeah, you didn't hear that?
Like the syrup factory?
Yeah, you didn't hear that? They took away Aunt Jemima. They're saying no, you can't have Aunt Jemima. Uncle Ben's next. Even collectible card games for nerds. I used to play it. They're going harshly on that. They're actually banning a lot of cards that promote servitude against colors and everything, which it's ridiculous on that aspect. And people are just it's a situation nobody knows what to do, and it's a situation that just keeps on coming up every 5 or 4 years. And it's a situation that literally can be handled a little bit differently, because what people are doing is, I'm stumbling on my words right now because I'm upset. Because
me personally,
a lot of people are dang it, I can't come up with the words on this because it really is just ignorance.
Yeah, and I can agree with that. Me personally, I don't think anything is going to change until we make 2 steps. 1 is fix our political situation, and 2 is fix our culture. Because right now we've got a culture where hatred incites hatred.
Yeah.
You've got.
Well,
I'm not going to use black and white because I don't believe that we should be viewing people as the color of their skin. So I'm going to say we've got the big ears and the small ears.
Yeah.
And the big ears are saying, okay, y'all have been discriminating against us because we have big ears, and we don't trust you because y'all have been discriminating against us.
I'm just filming up my big ears.
And then the small ears are saying, y'all are always acting crazy and not abiding by society because y'all don't trust us.
What's really sad, though...
And since y'all are acting out against us and we're acting out against you, we're going to continue to have this Romeo and Juliet feud going on.
What's even worse than that is a lot of people are saying, it's like, oh, white people are racist against black. It's like, no. You haven't even come up with the concept of racism until you check out the Asian community. Those motherfuckers are racist. So many. I mean, you can put. There's a commercial for laundry detergent, and what it was. And this is Japanese culture. This is not our culture. Our culture, someone would gotten
offended.
I knew what was going on. I was like, ooh, glad that doesn't show here. Well, I'm watching it here, so okay. What it was is this, I guess Japanese lady was doing laundry, and she had a boyfriend that was black. and she put all the laundry in there. Then she dumped him in there, started the wash, pulled her boyfriend back out, and he was Asian. So if you think we have a problem with racism, look at other countries. You will find out we don't have a problem with racism. It's this big compared to the world, which is this big. I mean,
like I said, I don't really even think it should be called racism. I mean, do you really want to call other human beings different races of human beings? I think that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
We should be looking at each other as fellow human beings, and that should be
here's the
end
bad
line.
thing about that, though, is everybody wants their originality. And a lot of times, these originalities is so far off, like a person that believes that they're a freaking deer, and they're put into the safety and safety and condonement on Twitch. Literally, this person thought they were a deer. Literally said on their videos, "Hey, I go outside and I go eat grass all the time." That kind of person shouldn't tell another person what is wrong with their videos, and they should be canceled, because that person, I mean, I'm all for freedom of speech, but there's a big difference between freedom of speech and mental health issues.
I'm all for freedom of speech, but when somebody has mental health issues, that's another thing I think that would help if we started fixing the system toward fixing mental health.
Yeah, and a lot of people think that, hey, I can't get mental help. I can't get help because it's going to cost way too much. No, actually, there's organizations that do this stuff for free.
Well, I'm not going to say for free, but I get my mental health through one of those organizations, and yeah, no, I probably couldn't be sitting here talking in front of the camera today if I wasn't at least somewhat medicated. I have very, very bad anxiety, like to the point where it wasn't as bad as long as I had a crutch to lean on in the past.
And I honestly think us doing these videos has actually helped you a lot too, because you've been more outspoken when you're actually going out and talking to people.
Well, that's something I've always made an effort to do, although depending on...
Little out there at times, and I have to go, whoa, reel it back in a little bit, Michael. reel it back in. But yeah, we do have a mental health issue, especially right now, because we're just now over... We're not over a pandemic. We're still having a pandemic.
It's hitting its second big spike, which shouldn't have happened for at least another 2 months, according to most predictions.
Honestly, I'm happy about it, because a lot of people, because of this bigger spike, a lot of people are actually seeing that because of this bigger spike, there's not really that much to worry about. Yes, this disease does not have a cure, and there's nothing to stop it. If you get it, you get it. You don't, you don't. And a lot of people need to get out in the sun. The whole thing that would stop people from getting this disease and getting to the point to where it's very hurtful to them is literally going out into the sun, which gives you vitamin D. That actually will help you in your with your health. And a lot of people were told to stay home and not do anything, which is totally opposite what would actually help, which I knew this. I was like, well, that's not going to help. But another thing on this
you
pandemic...
kind of have that combination of things. If the people had stayed home like they were supposed to and worn proper face protection, then the virus would be less likely to spread and would have eventually died out due to lack of hosts.
Okay, I'm totally over this. Just one thing on this, though. On this, and we're over it. Most of the people that get this disease are asymptomatics. Basically, they don't even they basically cure themselves of the disease so fast it's not even funny. A lot of people, and there is a flip side of that. There's people out there that actually, when they get the disease, they have health problems like asthma and everything like that. If you have asthma, you shouldn't be going out for a little bit until this is going over, or a suitable vaccine can be can be gotten. But that's it on that. Okay?
Fair enough.
The whole thing on that was people were told to stay in their house. People got cabin fever. And then everything started opening up a little bit. And then because the news didn't have the pandemic anymore to show off, and because everybody was going off, they were like, oh, we have to have something else. Oh, this guy got arrested and everything like that, and he was killed because of this. If it happened to be... It wouldn't matter about the color or anything. It was still a horrible act. In my opinion, that whole situation could have been averted by just doing your job in a professional manner, which that guy didn't do. And that guy, actually, the cop, was known to be a bully type person. And
he was somebody that, by all administrative purposes,
he
should have already been removed from the force.
What's really sad is we even had lots of people when we were working corrections. I had one guy, I almost took him outside and just beat the shit out of him because he was that bad of a person. Because
I've seen it both on the police force and in corrections. I mean,
yeah.
You know, when you're working as an officer, you've got those officers that you have to pull aside and say, hey, you can't do that.
Yeah. But what's bad is a lot of those officers, they gain rank because they're buddies with somebody. Or they're a good conversationist. But they don't know how to talk to people. And they get confused on certain aspects. Because honestly, the best officers that I've worked with were just officers that did their job. Hey, do this. We're gonna give you the same thing every time we come to work. This is my job. I'm gonna make sure that you stay alive. You get the stuff that you are allotted and needed, and I'm gonna make sure that you are healthy. That's it. That's part of the job. That's all the job. I'm gonna make sure making sure everybody's there.
Correctional. When we were working in corrections, the best officers were the ones that did their job, like you said, met all of those conditions, and also took the time to make sure nobody was going over the fence. Because not only were we protecting the people inside the facility,
yeah, we were protecting ourselves.
We were protecting the people outside the facility.
Yeah, I had a lot of inmates that respected me a little bit more because they were like, "Hey, I'm feeling I have a problem." I was like, "Well, we can get you, it's gonna take some time, but if you need to talk to talk to your inmates, but talk to the ones that are sane enough to actually listen to you, so you can get some stuff off your chest, so you don't go crazy." Because there were some inmates just like lighting fires. Like there were some correctional officers that just loved lighting fires.
Oh hell! I was working with this one female officer one day, and I was out there, and I think it was
the Circus.
The big one.
Circus did that all the time. That pissed me off.
It did not the enclosed dorms, but the big open one that we had.
Yeah.
I was out there working with one of the female officers, and she went in to count, and I had to get the other officer that went in there with her to come in and hold down so that I could go in there and fix some mess that she had started, because she was fixing a brawl with one of those big old inmates. I'm talking, this guy I'm 6 foot tall, and he stood 2 foot taller than me.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Well, it felt like he stood 2 foot. He might have only been about 7 foot, but still. He was big. One of those guys that bangs his head as he walks through the door if he doesn't duck.
Yeah.
And built like a linebacker. and she was shorter than me by about a foot, and she was in there about ready to start smackdown with him.
Yeah. Talk about a mouse trying to fight a freaking elephant.
I really did not know. I had to just say, hey, I'll deal with this. You go back to counting. And then I sit down and I talk with the inmate, and she had said something to him that, by all right, no human being should say to another.
No.
All because he was trying to go get a drink of water, which I pointed out to him, we are technically on count time. You don't need to be going to the water fountain right now. You should be doing what you're supposed to be doing. So, yeah, maybe the person there was, slightly in the wrong for thinking, oh, he can push around a female officer. But on the same token, some of the stuff she said to him, she had no business saying.
Yeah.
If she would have handled it just slightly differently, I'm sure he would have just gone back to his bed and left
Well,
it be.
I had an officer, and after that day, she ended up not working anymore. I don't know why. Oh man, she went in. She said one of the inmates were threatening her. So, like always, they put them in the segregated building. Well, I go in to do my count. No, she was actually doing her count. She did her count. She's banging on the freaking thing, screaming at me, "Get down here, get the sergeant, get the sergeant." I was like, "Okay, get the sergeant." "Hey, we have a problem here at cell, blah, blah, blah. Need assistance." Had him come in really fast, opened up both the doors, got him in there, and we had to pull that guy out because apparently that guy was the boyfriend of the person they sent to segregation, and he had wrote in his own blood on the wall his boyfriend's initials and his initials with a heart. Apparently it was pretty bad, and we went in there, and I got her back up in the thing, and my sergeant literally told me, it's like, do not let her on that floor ever again. She is not on the floor. Well, after that, she was fired, or she quit. I don't know what, but she couldn't handle that, and it was stupid. It was just stupid stuff. Have I had to yell at inmates? Yes. In a situations that I don't even want to talk about on certain instances, but.
I can honestly say I have never had to yell at them. I think they were more afraid of me when I lowered my voice to the point where I couldn't hear myself.
Oh, yeah, I do that all the time, too. I'm like, what are you doing? I think we fucked up. I'm pretty sure we fucked up. But we've corrections is almost like the police department, except we don't get guns. All we get is like CS gas, and we have to deal with the same instances of basically you're protecting inmates from other inmates. You're basically a cop on a beat in a cell.
No, see, and I've worked as a peace officer and a correctional officer. You've worked as a correctional officer and in the military.
Yeah.
Almost all three of those fields have very similar aspects. You have training that you're supposed to follow.
Yeah.
And in a lot of cases,
that's another case point is a lot of countries, they get maybe about 2 years. I think ours in this town is, I think it's about 1.5 years for training of being a law. I don't know. I forget what they call it. I know it's a lawman, but it's basically like
it's
any form of
the state I got my peace officer training in. That's what it was called. It was a peace officer.
Yeah, but it's more or less like there's some places that don't. There's some jobs they do and they only get like 6 months training, but there's some places there's some countries that do almost 2 years to train to become
I got almost a full year, and it was literally 10-hour days where you wake up in the morning, you're all living in the dormitory, you wake up in the morning, you go your happy ass downstairs, and you fall in for PT, and then you do a half hour of PT, and then you do a half hour of ground combat grapple training kind of thing, and then we would spend the rest of our time in written and legal courses.
Yeah.
And that was the most boring time in the world, where you literally had to sit there and memorize and understand the law.
Yeah.
You were not just being trained, okay, see the criminal, deal with the criminal. No, you were being taught what is legal and what isn't legal. what the different cases concerning the legalities of those are, how those different cases affected the way that the way to handle each different situation.
Yeah.
It was really complex. Such to the point that,
I mean, they have. I think in our town, I know sheriff's department. You have a year of training to go on the road, even a year, a couple of times to be a jailer, but it's a year of training, and then you got another 6 months tacked onto that for OJT. Or I could be wrong. It'd just be a whole year, and half of it's training and half of it's OJT.
that sounds more right. Because, after we had almost a year of 10-hour days, then we had another 3 months of OJT
Yeah.
when I was being a peace officer in the other state.
And hands down, if you have a horrible officer that's training you that says this is okay, yeah, you're gonna spawn out another set of officers that are pieces of shit.
Well, the way we went through it, by the time you came out of your almost a year's worth of training, it wasn't quite a full year's worth of training, but by the time you came out of that basic boot camp, you knew the law well enough that if you got stuck with an officer who was breaking the rules, you knew they were breaking the rules.
Yeah. Which it's more, in my opinion, though, it's more or less, no matter what career path you go out in life, you're always going to have a job to where A is getting away with a lot of stuff because he is literally buddied up with this guy who is actually a good guy, but he's buddied up with them, so they let him do a lot of stuff. I call it the good old boy syndrome. And a lot of the times when you have the good old boy syndrome, in any kind of job, officers is a lot more in depth because you're literally watching each other's back to make sure they don't die. Or in the military, you're in combat with another person, and that other person, hey, he saved my life, so he's a good guy, and he could be utter trash. Yeah. But
Not worthy of the gum that is stuck on your shoe.
yeah. But that's what a lot of people want to get so offended about all this stuff that's happening. I hate to tell people this, but it's part of life. And to say, oh, we have to do this because this is this and this is, I was like, why don't you just calm down, wait a couple of weeks, then realize that this stuff doesn't matter.
Well,
Now there's stuff that needs to be changed, like in a heartbeat. Taking away Aunt Jemima is freaking stupid. Taking away Elmer Fudd's gun because now he's using a sickle. I'm like, wait a minute, isn't a sickle gonna cause? Well, a shotgun would cause a lot of harm, but still,
how the heck do you hunt a rabbit with a sickle?
I don't know. I stopped caring after I heard the stuff. They're trying to do this PC culture really hardcore right now. But I hate to tell you this right now, is you give it, okay, world event or country events, what I consider world events, and this is my opinion, but sometimes it seems right. After probably about a month and a half, approximately like 6 weeks, all this stuff is going to be shoved over the table. Nobody's going to care about it. A lot of the stuff that has happened and nobody's taking note. Like, it is now illegal to fire a person that's in the homosexual community. The whole LGB plus whatever, TP plus whatever it is. And in my opinion, that's actually a good stepping stone to us being better people. But it's one of those things, it shouldn't happen anyways, but now we have a law.
Well, and
that thing
has
was
so many different ways that could backfire.
A lot of stuff can backfire.
That's
It-
one of my arguments against a lot of this stuff. And when I say that hate breeds hate, you can't go around scared for your life and hating on other people because somebody in your past has experienced hatred. It's kind of like saying, okay, this young girl's grandma got taken advantage of before this girl ever came about. And because that happened, this young girl's grandma told this young girl's mom, and this young girl's mom told this young girl, "Oh, you always have to watch out for men. Men are horrible. Men are bad. You got to take it from me because I know from experience." So now, whenever this girl is out, she's got a can of mace and she's spraying all men that she sees because men are horrible and men are bad.
Yeah.
Now, would I say that? What I call that victim is that's not victim blaming to say that the person macing innocent people because they feel threatened by them because of something that happened to their grandma.
Well,
is wrong.
there's a situation in Russia where this lady was literally pouring watered bleach on men's crotches that were doing men's. It wasn't mansplaining, it was
manspreading.
Manspreading, yeah. And I saw one that this feminist that was in this. I call it a hate group. It was a feminist hate group, and what she was saying is a man that farts loudly is trying to dominate a woman because, well, sometimes you gotta let that gas go. And I've heard women that they roll some stuff out that sounds like a freight train and a blowhorn for a lighthouse. You can hear that son of a bitch from miles.
I thought a loud fart just meant you haven't had any problems with the.
Dude, my grandmother one time farted, and I don't know what happened. I think there was a big train or something like that, so the whole house shook, and she farted. I was like, "Oh my God, it's the big one!" My mom was so pissed off because we were trying to sleep at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and we were all dead laughing our butts off because it felt like the big one.
Anyways, there are a lot of those situations that this comes down to where I think culture as a whole needs to come together more. Yes, I understand the need for diversity, the need to be slightly different than everybody else, the need to be yourself.
Well,
But
it comes back to good parenting too, because I've also seen two black kids bullying a little white girl because she was different and everything, and I guarantee if you actually look back, it was actually the parents that are probably doing that, because kids usually don't. I've had, when I was a kid, I had friends that were black, Asian, all kind of different colors and spectrums and everything.
I can't help but say it, but I grew up in a white trash community.
Yeah, well, I grew up on an Air Force base, so I had no choice.
And I can't really say I had a choice either. I mean, it wasn't really.
Well, we really don't have choices of where we live when we're younger.
It wasn't really a white trash community, but it's about as close as you want to put it, because even though we lived in a house, we had a trailer park down the road this way, we had a trailer park down the road this way, we had a trailer park down the road this way. We were literally situated in between massive amounts of trailer parks. Those are the people I grew up around, and those are the people that, in a lot of situations, they end up calling them white trash. Now, me, I can't really say that I can call them that, but not this trailer park, but there was a group of houses down over here that was a black community. I was friends with some of them. But there was another segment of that black community that discriminated heavily against white people. I mean, practically ready to spit on you if you got close enough.
Yeah.
Just because you were of a different color. And even though, because I grew up with people, I generally tried not to see the color. And the point I'm trying to get across whenever I talk to people is, we shouldn't see people and say, oh, there's a black person or there's a white person. There's a black community or there's a white community. we should more look at it as, these are communities, and these communities are either in one of several economic states. Because in all reality, the community I lived in was on a lower side of the economic state, hence the trailer parks all around.
Yeah.
And then you've got other communities where they've all got big houses and large lawns and a fancy car in the garage. I guarantee you don't see much discrimination or bias amongst the people in that community. But the minute you have somebody move into that community that's outside of what they're familiar with, that's when you see it.
Yeah.
And I think that that's where we need to start focusing our efforts toward, is not, colors. That's no worse than pointy ears and round ears.
Okay, and situations too is there is lot. If you actually do a little bit of more of a history lesson on a lot of different things that you would never know, because there was actually a white KKK member that got with a black woman that was trying to better their school districts, and eventually that white person that was in the KKK shunned the KKK, and he got beat up and everything because his thoughts were different now, because he actually saw, hey, we shouldn't be fighting each other, we should be fighting for our kids, we should be fighting a better lifestyle instead of the stuff that we got.
They
were best friends for like
against
years.
The discrimination that happens across multiple different levels, not just, I'm big ears and I'm small ears. No, we should be fighting against societal discrimination on a whole.
Like slavery, and that actually still happens.
Or
death on a person that believes that if a person that wants to have sexual relationships with another of the same sex, they shouldn't be discriminated to the point. And there's certain countries that they will flat out kill you,
stone you to death.
No, they'll chop off your head too.
Well, yeah, they do that, but in a lot of those communities, it becomes a community thing where they literally throw them out in the street and throw stones at them.
And what a lot of people don't understand is we have it way better than most countries. But they don't see that because they don't see that country. They just see you see here where a person that's been around the world and studies worldly stuff, you have a vast knowledge of how other people are. You are here. You're small, insignificant compared to the rest of the world and what the rest of the world has and can be. I mean, right now, there's not a lot of people that are talking about India and China almost going to war. I mean, they weren't allowed to have like guns and stuff like that, but they just beat the shit out of each other. And I think Indian called up that they had 20 people that died. China won't tell you anything, but that's a possibility that might be happening right now. Is China's going to go to war with India?
Yeah, I'm looking at the world events in today's current society and thinking there's a lot of things that we could do to fix the problems if we would work together, instead of making this all about, as I'm going to continue to say it, big ears and small ears. Yeah. If we would work together, there are a lot of problems we could fix. Governmental problems, societal problems, poor versus rich problems.
Which right now we don't have poor versus rich. What we have is poor versus middle class.
Well,
the super rich people are trying to go against them because they have way more money and they're not sharing. And I hate to say this, you don't deserve a fucking participation trophy.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying everybody wants to whine about, we need to raise the minimum wage. Well, in my opinion, raising the minimum wage only takes the minimum class down to the lower class.
Yeah, you're basically making more people want to be rich because they're poor now.
But
That's what's actually happening.
But in reality, what we need to be doing is trying to get rid of certain things that make the problems for those social groups. In other words, like we're going to take insurance, for example. Because insurance was instituted as a non-profit during one of our president's reigns, after that happened and insurance companies became able to make profit off of providing health insurance.
But you also got to look at the administrations of the hospitals.
That's what I was getting to. They then thereby lobbied the hospitals saying, we should get a discount. We're providing blah, blah, blah. We should get a discount so we can make money. And since the hospital says, yeah, but we're only charging, say, 10% over what it costs us, how the hell can we give you a discount? And then somehow or another it got worked out. Now, I don't have the full story. Y'all would have to do some research to prove me wrong on this one if I'm wrong. But I'm relatively certain that, the basic of my story is correct here with what little research I've done. Anyways, the hospitals and the insurance companies then worked out an agreement where the hospitals would raise their price and then the insurance companies would get a discount off of that raised price. Now, what nobody realizes is anybody that goes in without insurance, or anybody who can't afford to cover, or anybody whose insurance doesn't cover the full up to where the hospital wants covered, has to cover the rest themselves.
Yeah, $25 for a box of gloves that I can get. Literally, bring your own gloves to a hospital. That's all I'm saying. Because you can buy what does a box of gloves cost? Like $3?
$3.
Yeah.
$5 if you get the really good ones.
Yeah, no, it was $10 if we got the really, really good ones.
Well, yeah, the really, really good ones.
Yeah. But we ended up, because if you actually look at how much they're actually charging you for what stuff, it's ridiculous. Because an IV, all it really is, okay, you have to have somebody that's skilled to get an IV in you. I'm not dogging that. That part I understand. Now, paying $50 for a bottle of water, basically that's what an IV is. It has a little bit, okay, yes, it has a lot of minerals and chemicals in it and everything like that, yes, but it's basically water, saline.
Well, I can understand. Because, quite frankly, we're talking about something that by the time you're done processing it, packaging it, making sure it's sterile, all of the people who had to handle it to get it to you, the lowest cost they can afford to give it to you is $30. So $50 for an IV is close to reasonable.
Yeah, but $25 for a box of freaking gloves is ridiculous.
$25, but most of the hospital visits I've been to, it hasn't been $50 for an IV. The one or two times I've had to deal with it, I got charged almost $300 for an attempted IV.
What? Damn.
Yeah, I'll explain that one. My daughter was very, very sick and dehydrated. So we took her into the hospital. Well, the doctors realized immediately that she had a virus and she was dehydrated. We needed to get fluids into her. So they took her back. And I went with her because I just didn't feel right about the guy. And I watched the phlebotomist try twice, and then I watched the anesthesiologist try 3 times.
No. Prior military, I've already seen that. I've actually had a person that was addicted to heroin have to do his own freaking vein because the guy that was doing the veins was utterly...
Well, it's one thing
incompetent
for the nurse to not be able to hit it. And on the second try, I stopped her and I says, no, get somebody trained in here. The anesthesiologist, the person who went to who knows how long of training to be able to do this, could not hit my daughter's veins. At which point I said, screw this, you're not getting another try. You're going to be responsible. I says, look, you get me 2 bottles of Gatorade and a syringe. I will make sure she is hydrated before the end of the night. And I sat there for the rest of that night, giving my daughter drops of Gatorade with a syringe.
Yeah.
Orally. every few little bits until the doctors gave me it's all clear to leave the hospital.
Yeah. But I guess we can end it on that note, though.
It's yeah, I can agree. I mean, it's just us basically saying there's a lot of things in society that we need to work on, and until we put our heads together and work as one, we're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah, it's one of those situations we could probably go on for like 3 to 4 or 5 hours on this kind of subject because we're never going to be right and we're never going to be wrong. But just have an open mind, people, and hear people out. Just because they actually have a different opinion doesn't mean they're bad people. And this goes a lot, and just care about each other. And maybe we can actually overcome this stupid situation, better the world
A little bit.
a little bit. I'm David Dickerman.
I'm Michael Moffitt.
And this is Anger Me Productions. Thank you for watching.